Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. Culture is a buzzword that is thrown around a lot you look at a new coach that gets hired at a school and he says, right, we're going to play really fast and we're going to have a great culture. Like those are the two things. And sometimes it's true. A lot of times it might not be true, but that's the goal. So how does culture drive performance?
Great question. First of all, every entity needs to have a culture and it should be clearly defined and everybody should know exactly what it is. And whether that's a business culture or in the business by, I mean, a team, a group, a family, there's a culture for that. And each individual person needs to have their own culture, usually, which is a set of principles. And I was just talking about this to a coaching cohort of mine just 2 days ago, is that your principles they are etched in stone. These are non-negotiable. They do not change. Every human being should know exactly what their principles are. They should be able to list them out. These are my principles. This is what I'm about. This is what I will not bend on this. This is not negotiable. We're not even having a conversation about it. This is what it is. And a business should have the exact same thing. They should have a list of principles because the principles, they are a reflection of the culture. And that culture is based on the way that people show up. What do people expect when they walk into the room? What is okay? What's not okay? It's kind of like years ago, and there was a lot of debate about this and probably still is to this day, but I believe it was Giuliani when he was the mayor of New York. He talked about the broken window theory, that if there's a broken window in an abandoned building and nobody fixes the broken window, then somebody else is going to break another window. Then they'll throw trash on the ground. Then they'll put graffiti on the wall. And then before you know it, the whole neighborhood is going to garbage because everybody sees that, okay, nobody cared about that one. I might as well do something else and do something else and do something else. And it's a reflection, again, whether you agree with the concept or not, the point is accurate, and that is a reflection of the culture. So if I walk into a neighborhood and I see that people are throwing trash on the ground and nobody holds that person accountable, or there's a broken window and nobody comes and fixes it, or there's a graffiti on the wall, nobody cleans it up, I say, okay, well, this is what these people think of the neighborhood. This is what people think of their community. They're all right with it. Then, all right, that's telling me something about this community. Do I want to be here or do I not? And it's the exact same thing with a business. How are people walking in there? How are customers talking to their employees? How are players showing up? When I was in college, I had a coach, one of my coaches, they didn't all do this. I had 3 different coaches in college, but one of them said, when you get he said, every day when we have practice, if I say practice at 4:00, you need to be on the court, dressed and ready to go 15 minutes before the scheduled start time. So if I say 4:00, you need to be on the court and ready at 3:45. If you walk on the court ready at 3:55, you are late for practice, even though it was 4:00. You need to have your jersey tucked in. They gave us practice gear. You have to wear our practice gear. Your jersey must be tucked in and no jewelry. And if you violate any of those, you are late. You are off code, and there's going to be a penalty for it. And everybody adhered to it because he set the culture from the very beginning. He told us that before we even started practicing. He told us what the culture was. And when the culture is laid out clearly and everybody knows what the parameters are and someone is thorough about enforcing it, then people respect it. Now, if you say there's a culture, but you don't enforce it, then that's not real. Right? Yeah. I tell my audience all the time, and especially entrepreneurs, unenforced rules are just suggestions. All right, it's not a rule.
Will you say that one more time?
Unenforced rules are merely suggestions. Nobody's going to follow it if you're not enforcing it. And I had other coaches who never had said, this is what we're doing. This is how it works. So we pretty much kind of did what we wanted to do. And so it's a matter of how do you want to do things? And it's the same thing when it comes to human beings. What is your personal culture? Is your culture that, hey, I'm waking up every morning, regardless of what I did the night before, and this is the time I'm waking up, and this is when I start work? If you set that as a personal culture, then it's not negotiable. It's not something that you're saying, I might do it, I might not. Let me see how I feel. No, you say, this is what it is. This is how I'm living, and this is how I'm going to do things. And when you give yourself no out clauses, the interesting thing about human beings, when we give ourselves no out clauses to get something done, usually we get it done. And that's the mentality, and I call it the bulletproof mindset. That's the mentality that allows people to kind of raise their standards in life, but you have to set it as a standard. A standard, again, is you can't go below a standard. A standard is this is the floor. Nothing can go below this. And if you have anything that's below this, don't even bring it to us. That's what culture is about.
So much to unpack there. I don't think I've ever, in all these talks about culture with coaches, never looked at it as, what are my principles? Like, we focus a lot on the culture of our program, of our team. We have words, we have things that we live by, phrases that we say, but hopefully it goes deeper than just what you have on the back of a t-shirt, right? But
that's right.
I've never thought about it like, what are mine? So I wrote that down. Like, I'm 41 years old. What are my principles? And I thought maybe I wonder if I'd ask my wife or some of my closest friends, like, what do you feel like my principles are? I wonder what they would say. Like, I wonder what they would see in me. Is it just about basketball, or is it about things that translate and go deeper than that? I don't know.
That's right. That's right. And there's I'm not sure how much you follow other sports. You follow football?
Yeah.
College football? Okay.
Yeah.
So you remember about a month or two ago, there was a little bit of discussion when Deion Sanders was talking on the NFL Network about the kind of players he likes to recruit. And some people got mad at him because he was talking about who he wants. And he wants players from 2-parent homes, and he wants his quarterback to have had a father at home and someone who has been under the authority of a man. And some people got mad about that because they felt like he was kind of touching on stereotypes. But the whole thing was, whether people agree with it or not, what Deion was laying out is, here are the principles of who we want. And as the coach, he's kind of in charge. So he can want who he wants, whether he announces it or not. That's what he wants. And he was laying out the principles for the kind of player he is looking for. Now, would he be willing to make an exception? Probably, because we know college sports is all about recruiting.
Yeah.
Right? You get the most talent. You got to get who you got to do what you got to do. But the whole point was, he was letting everybody know, here's the kind of player that I want on my team. And every coach, especially at the collegiate level, where recruiting is the game. I don't care how good of the X's and O's you are. If you can't get talent, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right. You need talent to win at the college level. Every coach has that. Now, they don't all go announce it on TV like Deion did, but they all have that, and they know exactly what they want and what they don't want. And that's how they are building their programs, because they want to build a reputation. Like, this kind of person comes to a place like this. And businesses, we need to do the same thing. And any organization needs to do that exact same thing. Here's how we do things around here. Even people in communities. So somebody goes in the community for a long time. Hey, there's a certain way that there's a certain type of person we want in this community. And there are communities in America where to even move in, you have to be approved. You can't just move in. You can't just buy a house. You have to be approved by the people who are already there. And if they don't like how you show up, you can't buy the house, no matter how much money you have. So they're making it clear, this is who we want and this is who we don't want.
I think so many times coaches are guilty of walking into a new season and just setting the culture here. Now, I'm not talking about standards as far as like showing up on time, even though that is a part of it. But let's just say you have a group of words or an acronym or something, a system that you're used to, that you like. They come in and they set it and they tell their players, this is who we are. And this is how we're going to talk. This is when we're going to show up. And sometimes the players, if it aligns, that's great. Like if it aligns with their personal principles, that's awesome. And then I've seen sometimes where the kids don't really care about the same things that I care about. What do you think about an activity where, like you just said, this is who we are, this is how we're going to show up, where you bring them into that almost like in a co-creator role of, not that they're driving the bus, but they're on it with you. And if they can be a little bit more co-creators of it, maybe we get more buy-in. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good idea. I think it needs to come from the leaders, whoever the leaders are within that team, because in sports, and this is especially true at the amateur levels, college and high school, is that the coach can't be the strongest voice in the locker room. If the coach is the strongest voice in the locker room, that team's not going to be performing at its best. So somebody, player-wise, has to be a leader. And I'm sure as a coach, they always had that concept, the coach on the floor, right? Who's that player that the coach, if you need to get a message to the team, but you think they might not want to hear it from you, who can you give it to that they can get the message to the rest of the players? There needs to be some player leadership, and teams that succeed the most have player leadership, where there's players in the locker room when the coach is not around are holding their teammates accountable. And any team where I've been on a lot of teams, any team where that did not happen, that team was mediocre. And any team where it did happen, that team performed at a pretty high level. And I was on some teams with some talented players, but we didn't have that kind of internal leadership, and holding myself accountable included. Those teams didn't perform at their highest possible level. So to answer your question here, it would be, let's say if you had 2 captains or 3 captains on your roster, you meet with them and say, hey, what do you all think about this? Because if you can get them to buy in, then they'll get everybody else to buy in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really where it comes from. The players they're talking to each other more than they're talking to you anyway. Right. And they're talking behind your back after you get done talking anyway.
So true.
It's what are they saying when you're not in the room? That's what matters the most, not what you say.
That's good.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.